She was about to marry the man of her dreams when a shocking scene changed everything. At the altar in front of all the guests, the millionaire groom not only humiliated his bride, but slapped her face after his pregnant mistress appeared, challenging the ceremony. What was supposed to be the beginning of a life together turned into a nightmare, and all that remained was pain and shame. But what happened next will leave you in shock, and make you question how far arrogance can go before it turns into unbearable regret. The glass elevator of Caldwell Tower ascended like a rocket through the Manhattan skyline, reflecting golden hour light across its mirrored surface. Inside stood Nicholas Caldwell, impeccably dressed in a custom Tom Ford suit, his posture rigid with practiced confidence. His cold blue eyes surveyed the city below as if it were a chessboard, and everyone in it mere pawns. "I want those contracts finalized by tomorrow morning," Nicholas spoke into his phone, his voice carrying the calm certainty of a man who had never been refused. "I don't care if they have concerns about the timeline. They'll sign or we'll find someone who will." The elevator chimed as it reached the penthouse floor. Nicholas's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly as he spotted his assistant Michael hovering anxiously near the reception desk. "Mr. Caldwell, the board members are waiting in the conference room. They've been there for 20 minutes. Nicholas checked his Patek Philippe watch with deliberate slowness. "Then they've had plenty of time to review the materials." "Good." He strode past Michael without acknowledgement, his footsteps echoing against the marble floors. The Caldwell International logo loomed large behind the reception desk, a stylized C that resembled both a dollar sign and a crown. Not subtle, but Nicholas had never aimed for subtlety. "Gentlemen," Nicholas announced as he pushed open the heavy conference room doors, interrupting whatever conversation had been taking place. 8 men in expensive suits rose to their feet. "I trust we're ready to make decisions today." This wasn't a question. In Nicholas Caldwell's world, there were no questions, only statements that others scrambled to affirm. "Nicholas," ventured Walter Kingsley, the oldest board member, and the only one who dared call him by his first name. "We have concerns about the Jakarta acquisition. The political climate there is volatile and—" "The political climate is precisely why we're moving now," Nicholas cut in, sliding into his chair at the head of the table. "Their economy is desperate for stability. We offer that stability at 30 cents on the dollar for assets that will triple in value within 18 months. He didn't raise his voice. He never needed to. The room fell silent as Nicholas tapped his finger on the glossy presentation folder before him. "The projections are conservative. The opportunity won't last. Any other concerns?" No one spoke. Nicholas allowed himself a thin smile that never reached his eyes. "Excellent. I'll have the legal team execute immediately." 15 blocks away, in a sun-drenched loft apartment in Chelsea, Olivia Matthews was surrounded by fabric swatches, floral arrangements, and 3 increasingly frustrated wedding planners. "Ms. Matthews, we really need decisions on these centerpieces today," said the head planner, a woman whose forced smile had been slipping for the past hour. "The wedding is in 3 weeks." Olivia tucked a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear and looked down at the options before her. Unlike Nicholas, decisions didn't come easily to her, especially when they involved spending obscene amounts of money on things that would be admired for a few hours, then discarded. "I like this one," she said finally, pointing to the simplest arrangement, "but maybe with more greenery and fewer roses, something that feels more natural." The wedding planner made a note, her expression carefully neutral. "Of course," though Mr. Caldwell specifically mentioned that he wanted something impressive. Olivia's smile dimmed slightly. "Right, of course." Her phone buzzed with a text message. "Nicholas, working late. Don't wait up." 3 weeks before their wedding, and this was the 5th time this week he'd cancelled their dinner plans. Olivia felt a familiar pang of disappointment but quickly pushed it aside. "Actually," she said, straightening her shoulders, "let's go with the larger arrangement after all. Nicholas is right. It should be impressive." The planners exchanged glances as Olivia excused herself to take a call from the charity she volunteered with. They'd seen this pattern before with other high-profile couples. The powerful man, the accommodating woman, the elaborate wedding that was more statement than celebration. Later that evening, Olivia stood on the balcony of their penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. The city lights twinkled below her like fallen stars. She had once found it magical. Now it merely reminded her how small she felt in Nicholas's world. Her phone rang. Her sister Megan, calling from Boston. "How's the bride-to-be?" Megan's voice was warm but tinged with concern. Overwhelmed, Olivia admitted, sinking into a chair. There are so many details and Nicholas is so busy. Too busy for his own wedding plans. Olivia sighed. You know how important his work is. And you're not? It's not like that, Meg. He's under a lot of pressure. The silence on the other end spoke volumes. Liv, I need to ask you something, and I need you to really think before you answer. Are you happy? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. Olivia watched a plane crossing the night sky, its lights blinking steadily as it disappeared into the distance. I love him, she said finally. It wasn't an answer, and they both knew it. That's not what I asked. Olivia closed her eyes. He needs me, Meg. Behind all that confidence, there's someone who's lost. I can help him be better. It's not your job to fix him. I'm not fixing him. I'm supporting him. That's what partners do. Megan's sigh crackled through the phone. Just promise me something. If you ever feel like you're disappearing in his shadow, you'll tell me. I promise, Olivia said, though even as the words left her mouth, she wondered if she'd already begun to fade. The following morning, Nicholas sat in his private office reviewing merger documents when his private line rang. Only 3 people had this number. His eyes narrowed as he answered. I miss you, said a sultry female voice that definitely wasn't Olivia's. Nicholas glanced at his closed door before responding. Caroline, I told you not to call me here. It's been 5 days, Nicky, Caroline purred, using the nickname he'd forbidden everyone else from using. A girl gets lonely. I've been busy. The Jakarta deal is more important than me. There was an edge to her playfulness now. Than us? Nicholas pinched the bridge of his nose. Caroline Winters had started as a brief diversion, a passionate affair with a beautiful art gallery owner who understood ambition and didn't make emotional demands. Until recently. There is no us, Caroline. We've discussed this. Her laugh was like broken glass. We've discussed many things. Like how you were going to leave her. I never said that. You didn't have to. It was in every touch, every promise, every night you spent in my bed instead of hers. Nicholas checked his watch. I have a meeting in 5 minutes. With the wedding planner, perhaps? The big day's coming up fast. The threat in her voice was unmistakable. Nicholas's grip tightened on the phone. What do you want, Caroline? Just dinner. Tonight. At my place. I can't. Olivia and I have... Cancel it. Like you always do. After a long pause, Nicholas responded, I'll be there at 8. As he hung up, Nicholas caught his reflection in the window, handsome, successful, envied. Yet for a fleeting moment, he barely recognized himself. The rehearsal dinner was held at the Pierre Hotel, with a breathtaking view of Manhattan that even the most jaded guests couldn't help but admire. Nicholas worked the room like the consummate networker he was, charming, attentive, his hand resting possessively on the small of Olivia's back as he introduced her to business associates and society figures. Isn't my fiancée stunning? He said to the mayor, his smile wide but his eyes calculating. I'm the luckiest man in New York. Olivia smiled dutifully, though she'd heard variations of this line dozens of times that evening. She was a trophy being displayed, her value measured by the admiration in others' eyes. Nicholas speaks so highly of your charity work, the mayor's wife said kindly to Olivia. Will you continue after the wedding? Before Olivia could answer, Nicholas interjected smoothly. Olivia will be focusing on more important responsibilities. We're hoping to start a family soon. Olivia's smile froze. This was the first she'd heard of such plans. Later, as guests mingled over champagne and hors d'oeuvres, Olivia found a moment alone with Nicholas near the bar. Nicholas, about what you said to the mayor's wife. We've never discussed having children right away. He sipped his scotch, eyes scanning the room rather than meeting hers. It's what people expect to hear, but it's not what we've planned. Nicholas finally looked at her, his expression softening in the practiced way that always made her heart skip. He touched her cheek gently. Plans change, sweetheart. You'd make a beautiful mother. Before she could respond, his attention was diverted by the arrival of an important client. Olivia was left standing alone, wondering why his compliments always felt like they were about her appearance rather than who she was. Across the room, Olivia's maid of honor and best friend since college, Rebecca, watched the exchange with concern. She approached Olivia with 2 glasses of champagne. You okay? You look like you could use this. Olivia accepted the drink gratefully. Just wedding nerves. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Is that all? What do you mean? Liv, I've known you for 10 years. You get this look when you're trying to convince yourself of something. Olivia sipped her champagne, avoiding her friend's gaze. Everything's fine. The wedding's going to be perfect. I didn't ask about the wedding. I asked about you. Before Olivia could respond, Nicholas appeared at her side, his hand sliding around her waist. Ladies, I hate to interrupt, but the Whitmores are leaving, and they specifically asked to say goodbye to you, Olivia. As he guided her away, Olivia glanced back at Rebecca, who raised her glass in a silent toast that somehow felt like a warning. The night before the wedding, Nicholas didn't come home. Olivia sat on their bed until midnight, alternating between calling his cell phone and staring at the door. Each call went straight to voicemail. Each minute that passed felt like confirmation of what she'd been trying not to see. At 2 a.m., she heard the elevator to their penthouse arrive. Nicholas entered the bedroom quietly, loosening his tie. "Where were you?" Olivia asked, her voice small in the darkness. Nicholas started slightly, not having noticed her sitting in the shadows. "Work. The Jakarta deal closed. We were celebrating. I called your office, no one was there. We went to Emerson's club." The lie came easily, wrapped in just enough detail to sound plausible. "Your phone was off." Nicholas began undressing, his movements unhurried. "Battery died. Why are you interrogating me the night before our wedding?" Olivia flinched at his tone. "I was worried." Nicholas softened, sitting beside her on the bed and taking her hands in his. "I'm sorry. It's been a stressful week, but tomorrow it's just about us." His kiss tasted like scotch and someone else's perfume. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, one of those perfect New York September days that seemed custom-ordered for the occasion. St. Patrick's Cathedral stood majestic against the blue sky, its Gothic spires reaching heavenward like prayers. Inside, 500 guests filled the pews, politicians, celebrities, business leaders, and a small handful of people who actually cared about Nicholas and Olivia as people rather than symbols. In a private room near the altar, Nicholas adjusted his bow tie, his best man Jonathan pouring them each a shot of 30-year-old Macallan. "To your last moments of freedom," Jonathan joked, raising his glass. Nicholas didn't laugh. His phone buzzed in his pocket, another message from Caroline. He'd been ignoring her since their last encounter 3 nights ago, when she'd become increasingly emotional about the wedding. "We need to talk, now. It's important." He deleted the message without responding. In another room, Olivia stood before a full-length mirror as Rebecca arranged her veil. The dress was a masterpiece of lace and silk, custom designed by Vera Wang herself. Nicholas had insisted on only the best. "You look like a princess," Rebecca said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Olivia studied her reflection. "I don't feel like one." Rebecca hesitated. "It's not too late, you know. If you're having doubts." "Everyone has doubts. Not like the ones I see in your eyes." Before Olivia could respond, there was a commotion outside. Raised voices, a woman shouting, ushers trying to maintain decorum. The door burst open. Olivia's father stood there, his face ashen. "Olivia, there's a situation." Behind him appeared a woman Olivia had never met but somehow instantly recognized. Beautiful, disheveled, mascara streaking down her face. Caroline. And even through the loose-fitting coat she wore, the reason for her presence was unmistakable, the distinct curve of her pregnant belly. "I need to see Nicholas," Caroline demanded, her voice breaking. "Where is he? He needs to know about our baby." The cathedral fell silent as the words echoed through the vaulted space, reaching every corner like a curse. The silence that followed Caroline's declaration hung in the air like a physical thing, heavy, suffocating, absolute. For 3 eternal seconds, not a single person in St. Patrick's Cathedral moved or breathed. Then, like a dam breaking, chaos erupted. "Security!" someone shouted from the front pews. Several ushers moved toward Caroline, but she evaded them with surprising agility for a pregnant woman. "Don't touch me!" Caroline screamed, her voice echoing through the sacred space. "Where is Nicholas? I have a right to be heard." Olivia stood frozen in the side chamber, one hand clutching her father's arm, the other pressed against her mouth. The perfect fantasy she'd constructed, the marriage, the future, the man she thought she knew, crumpled like tissue paper in rain. "Livy," Rebecca whispered, moving protectively to her side. "Let's get you out of here." But Olivia couldn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the sanctuary door, which burst open to reveal Nicholas, his face a mask of cold fury as he took in the scene. Their eyes met briefly across the space, his filled with something that might have been regret but looked more like inconvenience. Nicholas strode directly to Caroline, gripping her arm tightly and pulling her toward a side chapel. "Have you lost your mind?" he hissed, but his words carried in the cavernous space. "You're hurting me," Caroline said loudly. She yanked her arm free and placed a protective hand over her swollen belly. "Just like you hurt me when you said you'd leave her for me, when you promised we'd be a family." Gasps rippled through the assembled guests. Phones were discreetly raised to capture the unfolding drama. New York's high society had just been given the scandal of the season. Nicholas's business partner, Victor Reynolds, approached cautiously. "Nick, let's handle this privately. The press—" "There is no privately anymore," Caroline interrupted, turning to face the stunned congregation. Her voice trembled but carried strength. "I've been Nicholas Caldwell's lover for the past year, and this," she gestured to her stomach, "is his child. He's known for months. He promised to tell her, to end this charade of a wedding." Nicholas's jaw clenched as he scanned the room, noting the prominent faces of clients, investors, and rivals, all witnessing his humiliation. His eyes narrowed as they landed back on Olivia, who had finally emerged from the side chamber, supported by Rebecca and her father. Something shifted in Nicholas's expression, calculation replacing shock. In one fluid motion, he crossed to Olivia, his voice pitched to carry just enough for those nearest to hear. "You knew about this, didn't you?" he accused, voice low and dangerous. "This is your revenge because I've been distant. You arranged this whole spectacle to humiliate me." Olivia blinked in disbelief. "What? I had no idea." "Don't lie to me." Nicholas's voice rose sharply. His control, that carefully cultivated image of power and restraint, slipped. His hand moved before his mind could stop it. The slap echoed like a gunshot. Olivia's head snapped sideways from the impact. A red mark bloomed instantly on her cheek, stark against her suddenly pale skin. The cathedral fell silent again, this new horror somehow worse than the first. "You did this," Nicholas continued, his finger pointing accusingly at her face. "You couldn't just leave quietly if you were unhappy. You had to destroy me publicly." Rebecca stepped between them, her eyes blazing. "Get away from her, you bastard." Nicholas ignored her, his focus entirely on Olivia. "Well, say something, admit what you did." Olivia touched her burning cheek, her eyes meeting his. What she saw there, not a trace of the man she thought she loved, only a stranger consumed by ego and rage, broke something fundamental inside her. The last threads of illusion snapped. "I didn't know," she said quietly, her voice gaining strength with each word. "But I should have. All those late nights, the perfume, the distance. I told myself you were just stressed about work. That's what you wanted me to believe." She took a step back, her wedding dress whispering against the marble floor like a ghost. "I've been so blind." Before Nicholas could respond, Olivia gathered the massive skirt of her gown and turned, fleeing down the center aisle. Hundreds of eyes followed her retreat, some sympathetic, others gleefully scandalized. The cathedral doors swung open, flooding the space with September sunlight as she disappeared into the street. Nicholas stood alone at the altar, surrounded by the wreckage of his perfect day. Caroline had been quietly escorted to a side room by church staff. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder, less restrained. Phones continued recording, society's vultures feeding on his downfall. Victor approached again, his voice urgent. "Nick, we need to contain this, now. The market opens Monday, and if this gets out—" "If?" Nicholas laughed bitterly. "Look around, Victor. Half of Manhattan's elite is witness to this disaster. Jonathan, his best man, joined them. Reuters is already running with it. It's hitting Twitter. We need a statement." Nicholas straightened his shoulders, adjusting his bow tie in a reflexive gesture of control. "Get the car, I'm going back to the office." "The office?" Victor looked incredulous. "Nick, your wedding just imploded. Your fiancé—" "Is no longer my concern." Nicholas cut him off coldly. "This changes nothing about the Jakarta deal. I want the team assembled within the hour." As Nicholas strode down the aisle, the guests parted before him like the Red Sea. Some averted their eyes, others stared openly. He nodded curtly to select individuals, the mayor, 2 senators, the hedge fund manager whose support was critical for his next venture. Most nodded back, but their eyes held a new calculation, a reassessment of his worth and stability. Outside, the press had already gathered, alerted by social media, and the instinct for blood that kept New York's tabloids in business. Camera flashes exploded as Nicholas emerged. He ignored them all, sliding into his waiting Bentley without comment. "The office, sir?" his driver asked uncertainly. "No," Nicholas said after a moment's consideration. "Take me to the Pierre." The hotel suite that should have hosted the bride and groom's first night together became Nicholas's war room. By evening, his inner circle had assembled: Victor Reynolds, his business partner; Jonathan Wells, his oldest friend and head of legal; Michael Park, his chief of staff; and Diane Foster, his PR director. "The damage control options are limited," Diane stated bluntly, placing her tablet on the coffee table. "This isn't just going away." "I'm aware," Nicholas said coldly. He stood by the window, tumbler of scotch in hand, looking out at the city lights. "What's the immediate impact?" Victor cleared his throat. "The Jakarta investors are concerned. They've requested an emergency call tomorrow." "Religious conservatives," Nicholas muttered. "They'll get over it." "It's not just Jakarta," Jonathan interrupted, his lawyer's caution evident. "The Brookfield acquisition is questioning the stability of leadership. They've asked for a 72-hour hold on negotiations." Nicholas turned sharply. "They can't do that. The paperwork is ready to sign." "They can and they have," Jonathan confirmed. "And Nick, Williams and Grant are reconsidering their position." That landed like a physical blow. Williams and Grant controlled the financing structure for half of Caldwell International's expansion plans. "This is fucking absurd." Nicholas slammed his glass down. "One personal issue and suddenly my business acumen is in question?" Michael, who had been quietly tracking social media on his laptop, looked up. "It's trending #1 nationally. On Caldwell wedding disaster." "What about Olivia?" Diane asked carefully. "Has anyone been in contact with her?" Nicholas waved dismissively. "Not my problem." "Actually," Diane countered firmly, "how she responds is very much your problem. If she gives an interview, goes public with her side." The thought hadn't occurred to Nicholas. Olivia had always been compliant, accommodating, the perfect corporate wife material. But now, "Find her," he ordered Michael. "Make sure she doesn't talk to anyone." The room fell silent, his team exchanging uncomfortable glances. "What?" Nicholas demanded. "Nick," Jonathan said quietly, "you hit her, in front of 500 witnesses, in a cathedral. There's video." "It was a momentary lapse." "It was assault," Diane stated flatly. "And it's all anyone's talking about, not the pregnant mistress, not the cancelled wedding. You, hitting her." Nicholas rubbed his temples, the first hint of genuine concern crossing his features. "What are we looking at legally?" Jonathan hesitated. "If she presses charges, misdemeanor assault, minimum. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is your image, the reputation you've built." "Half the board called me this afternoon," Victor added. "They're demanding an emergency meeting Monday morning." Nicholas's phone buzzed. Another text from Caroline. He ignored it. "What about her?" He gestured vaguely. "The pregnant woman." "Caroline Winters," Michael supplied, "owner of Winters Gallery in Soho. Your calendar shows 14 private meetings with her in the past year." Nicholas shot him a venomous look. "I know who she is." "She's refusing to leave the hotel," Michael continued. "Says she wants to talk to you, only you. Have security remove her." Diane shook her head. "That's the last thing we need. More images of you mistreating women. I suggest you meet with her privately, with legal representation present." Nicholas drained his scotch, his expression darkening. "Fine. Set it up for tomorrow. Now, about Monday's board meeting." The hotel room phone rang, interrupting him. Michael answered, his expression growing increasingly concerned during the brief conversation. "That was the front desk," he said, after hanging up. "Olivia's sister Megan is downstairs. She's demanding access to the honeymoon suite to collect Olivia's things, and she has a police officer with her." While Nicholas and his team strategized damage control, Olivia sat in her sister's Brooklyn apartment, staring blankly at the wall. She had changed out of her wedding dress into borrowed sweatpants and a t-shirt. The mark on her cheek had darkened to a bruise. "You need to see a doctor," Megan insisted, placing an ice pack gently against Olivia's face. "I'm fine," Olivia said automatically, the response she'd given to any concern or complaint throughout her relationship with Nicholas. "You're not fine," Rebecca countered from the kitchen where she was making tea. "That bastard hit you in front of God and everyone." Olivia's father, Richard Matthews, paced the small living room. A retired literature professor, he had never approved of Nicholas, though he'd kept his reservations largely to himself. "I should have stopped this wedding months ago," he muttered. "I knew something wasn't right about that man." "Dad, please," Olivia's voice cracked. "Not now." Richard sat beside his daughter, taking her hand. "I'm sorry, Livy. I failed to protect you." "I failed to protect myself," Olivia whispered. Her phone, which she'd silenced hours ago, buzzed again on the coffee table. Rebecca glanced at the screen. "Michael Park. Again. That's the 5th call from Nicholas's office." "Don't answer it," Megan said firmly. In fact, she picked up the phone and powered it off. They can all go to hell. A knock at the door startled everyone. Megan checked the peephole, then opened it to reveal a police officer, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Ms. Matthews, Officer Rivera, we spoke downstairs at the Pierre." Olivia stood shakily. "Did you get my things?" "Yes, ma'am. They're in my cruiser." "May I come in?" Once inside, Officer Rivera sat across from Olivia. "Ms. Matthews, I need to ask if you want to file charges against Nicholas Caldwell for assault." The room fell silent. Olivia touched her bruised cheek. "It would be your statement, plus hundreds of witnesses, video evidence," Officer Rivera continued gently. "It's a clear case." "And then what?" Olivia asked quietly. "He'd be arrested, processed. Given his status, he'd make bail immediately. There would be a trial eventually. You'd have to testify." Olivia closed her eyes. "And face him again?" "Yes." Rebecca sat beside her. "Liv, he can't get away with this." "He won't," Olivia said, opening her eyes with newfound clarity. "But not this way. Not through a court battle. He'll use his money and power to manipulate." She turned to Officer Rivera. "I appreciate your help, but I'm not filing charges. Not now, anyway." Richard began to protest, but Olivia raised her hand. "Dad, please respect my decision. I need time to think, to plan. Nicholas thrives on conflict. It's where he's strongest." Officer Rivera nodded, understanding in her eyes. "The option remains open. Assault has a 2-year statute of limitations in New York." After the officer left with a promise to return with Olivia's belongings, Megan sat across from her sister. "What are you thinking, Liv?" Olivia looked up, something new and determined in her gaze. "I'm thinking that Nicholas just showed the world exactly who he is, and that I need to show them and myself who I am." Monday morning arrived with the headlines Nicholas had dreaded. His face dominated every New York paper, most juxtaposed with images of Olivia's shocked expression after the slap. The business press was more measured but equally damaging, with the Wall Street Journal running an analysis of how personal scandals impacted executive leadership and stock prices. Caldwell International's shares had dropped 12% in pre-market trading. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. At 8:15, Nicholas sat in his office reviewing Jonathan's hastily prepared statement, a carefully crafted non-apology that acknowledged regrettable actions without admitting specific wrongdoing. His private line rang. Expecting Caroline again, he answered with an irritated, "What now?" "Nicholas." The voice was male, elderly, and familiar. Walter Kingsley, the senior board member. Nicholas straightened. "Walter, I was just preparing for our meeting." "There's been a change," Walter said, his tone grave. "The meeting will now be at 8:30, and Nicholas, leave your security badge with reception when you arrive." The line went dead before Nicholas could respond. He stared at the phone, a cold feeling spreading through his chest. "Leave your badge." The implication was unmistakable. His cell phone buzzed with an incoming email. The sender, Olivia Matthews. The subject line, "What comes next?" Nicholas hesitated, then opened it. There was no message, only an attachment. He clicked and a PDF displayed on his screen, a press release formatted and ready to send. His eyes widened as he read the headline, "Olivia Matthews announces new foundation for domestic violence survivors, funded by settlement from Nicholas Caldwell." Settlement? What settlement? He scrolled down to find quotes attributed to him. Apologies, admissions of wrongdoing, promises of financial restitution, none of which he had made or authorized. At the bottom was a personal note from Olivia. "Nicholas, this is going to all major media outlets at 9 a.m. just as your board meeting begins. Alternatively, we can discuss actual terms. You have my lawyer's number below. You have 30 minutes to decide." Olivia P.S. Caroline called. We had a lovely chat about your promises to both of us. She's copied on this email." Nicholas's hand trembled as he set down his phone. For the first time in his carefully controlled life, he felt true fear, not just for his reputation or his company, but for the entire empire he'd built. It was all suddenly, terrifyingly vulnerable. And somewhere across the city, Olivia Matthews was no longer the compliant, accommodating woman he'd expected her to be. She had become something far more dangerous, an adversary who knew all his secrets. 6 months later, the snow fell gently outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of what remained of Nicholas Caldwell's empire, a significantly downsized office on the 32nd floor of a midtown building that wasn't emblazoned with his name. The view, once a panoramic showcase of his domain, now offered a partial glimpse of Manhattan, half obscured by the taller building next door. Nicholas stared at the quarterly report on his desk, the numbers confirming what he already knew. Caldwell International was a shadow of its former self. 6 months after what the press had dubbed the Cathedral Calamity, his company had lost 63% of its market value. The Jakarta deal had collapsed spectacularly, taking with it nearly $300 million in projected revenue. 3 major board members had resigned, and the remaining ones had forced Nicholas to accept a strategic advisor who reported directly to them, a humiliating form of corporate babysitting. Mr. Caldwell. His new assistant knocked tentatively at the door. Not Michael, who had departed for a competitor 2 months ago, but a nervous young man named David, who never quite met Nicholas's eyes. "Mr. Reynolds is here to see you." Victor entered without waiting for a response, his expression grim. Once Nicholas's most loyal ally, Victor now carried himself with the careful distance of someone standing near a condemned building. "The Williams and Grant financing fell through," Victor announced without preamble. "They've decided to back Brighton Corp instead." Nicholas slammed his fist on the desk. "That's our third financing option gone in 2 weeks. What the hell is going on?" Victor's expression was a mixture of pity and frustration. "What's going on is that no one wants to be associated with us right now. Your settlement with Olivia made headlines again last week when she launched that domestic violence initiative. Every time someone Googles Caldwell, they see your face next to the word abuser. The settlement had been brutal but necessary. Nicholas had been forced to pay Olivia $12 million and issue a public apology crafted by her attorneys, a small price compared to what he would have lost had her press release gone out. The board had nearly ousted him anyway, only relenting when he agreed to step back from public-facing aspects of the business. That was months ago, Nicholas growled. Markets have short memories. Not for this, Victor shook his head. And now with the Caroline situation, don't mention her name, Nicholas snapped. Caroline had delivered the final blow to his reputation. After their confrontation at St. Patrick's, she had agreed to a private financial arrangement, a monthly stipend for her and the child in exchange for her silence. Nicholas had believed the matter contained until 3 months ago, when Caroline disappeared with a single transfer payment of $5 million that Nicholas had authorized for a property investment. She had fled to Europe, taking not only his money but copies of incriminating emails and text messages, which she threatened to release should he pursue her. The forensic accountants confirmed it, Victor continued. She had access to your personal accounts for months. The offshore transfers, I'm aware, Nicholas cut him off coldly. He didn't need the reminder that he'd been played, that while he was strategizing damage control after the wedding disaster, Caroline had been systematically transferring funds to untraceable accounts, preparing her escape. Victor hesitated, then placed a folded newspaper on the desk. There's something else you should see. Nicholas glanced down at the Wall Street Journal's business section. The headline made his blood run cold. Phoenix Rising, Olivia Matthews secures 50 Malisers for tech startup. The accompanying photo showed Olivia, hair now cut in a sleek, confident bob, dressed in an impeccably tailored suit, standing next to Eliza Chen, the notoriously selective venture capitalist who had rejected Nicholas's pitches twice in the past. What the hell is this? Nicholas demanded, snatching up the paper. Apparently, Olivia has been developing some kind of AI platform for small business financial management, Victor explained. Chen's firm is leading the Series A funding. Word is they were oversubscribed, investors fighting to get in. Nicholas skimmed the article, his jaw tightening with each sentence. The woman he had dismissed as merely decorative, whose career ambitions he had patronizingly redirected toward charity work, had just secured major backing for a technology he hadn't even known she was developing. "This is impossible," he muttered. She was an art history major. She worked at a non-profit. She also took night classes in computer science for the past 2 years, Victor said quietly. "Did you know that?" Nicholas looked up sharply. Of course, he hadn't known. He had never asked. "There's more," Victor hesitated. "Brighton Corp are the company that just got the Williams and Grant financing we needed. Their new strategic advisor is Jonathan Wells. Jonathan, Nicholas's best man, his head of legal for 8 years, his oldest friend, gone." "Et tu, Brute," Nicholas whispered, more to himself than Victor. "Nick," Victor said carefully, "I need to be honest with you. I've been offered a position at Westridge Partners." The final betrayal landed like a physical blow. Nicholas stared at his last remaining ally, seeing in Victor's averted gaze that his decision was already made. "You're leaving. The board is meeting next week to discuss a restructuring. They're going to ask for your resignation, Nick. They already have your replacement lined up." Nicholas's mouth went dry. "And you know this how?" "Because they asked me first. I turned them down." Victor's expression held no triumph in this small loyalty. "But I can't stay on a sinking ship. I have a family to think about." After Victor left, Nicholas stood alone in his diminished office watching the snow blanket the city. 6 months ago he had been untouchable. Now he was toxic, abandoned, his carefully constructed world disintegrating around him. His phone buzzed with an incoming email. His lawyer, with an update on Caroline's latest demands. Nicholas ignored it, instead pulling up a search for Olivia Matthews. The results were staggering. Feature articles in Forbes and Fortune, a TEDx talk on resilience, a growing social media presence filled with business insights and occasional references to her foundation for domestic violence survivors. In each photo, she looked more confident, more powerful, a woman transformed by adversity rather than broken by it. Nicholas closed his laptop with a sharp click. Something dark and bitter twisted inside him, a poisonous blend of rage, jealousy, and a sentiment he rarely experienced: regret. In a light-filled office in Chelsea, Olivia Matthews stood before a whiteboard covered in flowcharts and code snippets, addressing her team of 12 developers and business strategists. The energy in the room was electric, fueled by the morning's news about their successful funding round. "The Series A gives us runway for 18 months, Olivia explained, her voice steady with newfound authority. "But I don't want us getting comfortable. We launch the beta in 90 days, refine for 60, then go to market in Q3. Rebecca, now Olivia's chief marketing officer, raised her hand. "The press is already asking for interviews following the journal piece. How do we want to handle that?" Olivia considered the question. 6 months ago, she had been hiding from reporters, traumatized and humiliated. Now they sought her out for entirely different reasons. "Select opportunities only," she decided. "Focus on business publications, tech outlets. Nothing that frames this as a comeback story or mentions the wedding. We've moved beyond that narrative." As the meeting dispersed, Olivia retreated to her private office, a thoughtfully designed space that reflected her emerging identity. Gone were the soft pastels and accommodating aesthetic she had adopted to please Nicholas. Her workspace now featured clean lines, bold artwork, and a desk positioned to face the door rather than the window, a subtle symbol that she was focused on what was coming, not gazing outward, waiting for rescue. Rebecca followed her in, closing the door. "Quite a morning, how are you feeling?" Olivia allowed herself a small smile. Validated, terrified, exhilarated. "All appropriate responses to raising $50 million, Rebecca laughed, then grew serious. "You saw the other news?" Olivia nodded. She kept tabs on Nicholas's downward trajectory, not out of vindictiveness, but as a business necessity. His fall affected market sectors they both operated in. "Caldwell International is rumored to be on the block," Rebecca continued. "Stock hit an all-time low yesterday, and Caroline Winters was spotted in Monaco with a banking executive, sporting what appeared to be a very expensive new yacht." "And the baby?" Rebecca shrugged. "No sign of any baby. Some are speculating there never was one." Olivia absorbed this without comment. Caroline's deception wasn't her problem, though she did feel a twisted sympathy for Nicholas being conned by a woman he thought he controlled, an irony that wasn't lost on her. "I have the finalized investor documents," Rebecca said, changing the subject. She placed a thick folder on Olivia's desk. Eliza Chen added a personal note. She said you're proving her theory that The best founders are those who've survived something that should have destroyed them. Olivia ran her fingers over the folder. Inside was the culmination of work that had begun long before her wedding day disaster. Work she had pursued quietly, almost apologetically, while playing the role of Nicholas's supportive fiancé. The truth was, FinAssist, her AI-driven financial management platform, had been in development for nearly 2 years. The seed funding had come from her own savings, carefully hidden from Nicholas, who had controlled their joint finances with meticulous attention. The coding skills she'd developed through night classes he'd dismissed as a cute hobby. The business plan she'd refined during the hours he spent with Caroline. "Your sister called," Rebecca added. "She wants to know if you're still coming for dinner tonight." Olivia glanced at her calendar. "Yes, I need that. Normal family time. Will you come?" "Wouldn't miss it." Rebecca hesitated. "There's one more thing. Thomas Wright from the Times wants to do a profile. A big one. Sunday magazine cover." Olivia's expression tightened. "I told you, no personal angles." "It's not about the wedding," Rebecca interrupted. "It's about FinAssist and what it means for democratizing financial tools for underserved businesses." "But Liv, they're going to ask about him. About how you went from planning a society wedding to launching a tech company in less than a year." Olivia turned to look out the window at the New York skyline, the same view she had once gazed at from Nicholas's penthouse, feeling small and insignificant. Now she saw it differently, not as a kingdom to be conquered, but as a landscape of possibilities. "Then I'll tell them the truth," she said finally. "That sometimes what looks like the worst day of your life is actually the first day of your real life. That being publicly humiliated freed me from caring what others think. That watching someone you love reveal who they truly are," her voice caught slightly, "can show you who you truly are too." Rebecca smiled. "Now that's a cover story I'd read." 3 weeks later, Nicholas sat in his lawyer's office, staring numbly at the paperwork before him. His resignation from Caldwell International had not been voluntary, but after the board's unanimous vote, he had no choice. The severance package was generous on paper, but restricted by so many conditions and clawbacks that his actual compensation was a fraction of what it appeared. "You'll retain the penthouse and the Southampton property," his lawyer explained, "but the company jet and the London apartment revert to corporate assets." Nicholas barely registered the details. The company that bore his name would continue without him, rebranded under new leadership. His legacy, the empire he had sacrificed everything to build, would be dismantled and absorbed, his name gradually fading from letterheads and lobby signs. "There's one more item," the lawyer said, sliding a final document across the desk. "Ms. Winters has agreed to sign a comprehensive NDA regarding your relationship in exchange for a final payment of $3 million. Nicholas laughed bitterly. "So she gets $8 million total for carrying out an elaborate con. Mr. Caldwell, given what she claims to have in her possession, emails, texts, recordings, this is actually quite favorable. If those materials became public—" "I understand," Nicholas cut him off sharply. He had no illusions about what Caroline might release, not just evidence of their affair, but private moments when he had expressed contempt for business partners, revealed insider trading information, and detailed tax strategies that existed in legal grey areas. As he signed the final papers, Nicholas felt oddly hollow. In the span of 6 months, he had lost his company, much of his fortune, his reputation, and any claim to the legacy he had spent his life building. Outside his lawyer's office, a newsstand displayed the Sunday New York Times magazine with Olivia's face on the cover, confident, serene, powerful. The headline read, "The Rise of Olivia Matthews, How Adversity Created a Tech Visionary." Nicholas bought a copy, reading it in the back of a taxi rather than the corporate car he no longer had access to. The article was devastating not for what it said about him. He was mentioned only briefly as her former fiancé, but for what it revealed about Olivia. She had been developing FinAssist throughout their relationship, working nights and weekends, while he assumed she was handling wedding plans or charity events. She had secured initial seed funding from investors she met through the non-profit work he had dismissed as irrelevant. The technical skills he had patronizingly indulged as a hobby were now the foundation of a platform being hailed as revolutionary. "I always saw myself as someone waiting for life to happen," Olivia was quoted saying. "The events of last year showed me that I needed to make life happen instead. There was no direct mention of the wedding disaster, the slap, or the settlement, just a passing acknowledgement that a personal crisis became the catalyst for professional transformation. The taxi pulled up to Nicholas's building. As he paid the fare, actually checking the amount, rather than carelessly over-tipping as he once did, his phone rang with an unfamiliar number. "Nicholas Caldwell," he answered, his business tone an automatic reflex. "Mr. Caldwell, this is Eliza Chen from Horizon Ventures." Nicholas froze. Eliza Chen, the venture capitalist currently backing Olivia's startup, the woman who had twice declined meetings with him. "Ms. Chen," he said cautiously, "this is unexpected." "I'll be brief." Chen's voice was coolly professional. "I'm calling about Meridian Technologies, the AI security firm you acquired last year before your departure from Caldwell International." "What about it?" Nicholas had purchased the small startup as a strategic asset, recognizing the potential of their encryption algorithm, though the acquisition had been overshadowed by subsequent events. "I represent a consortium interested in acquiring it from Caldwell International. However, the board informed us that the intellectual property rights were transferred to your personal holdings before you left." This was true, one of the few assets Nicholas had managed to extract from the wreckage. "I'm listening," he said, a flicker of his old business instinct stirring. "We're prepared to make a very generous offer," Chen continued. "The technology would complement our existing portfolio, particularly Ms. Matthews' FinAssist platform, which requires robust security protocols for financial data." The implication hit Nicholas like a physical blow. Olivia needed the technology he controlled. His ex-fiancée, who had risen from the ashes of their relationship to eclipse him professionally, now required something only he could provide. "I see," he said, a slow smile spreading across his face, the first genuine one in months. "Well, Ms. Chen, I'd be very interested in discussing this further, perhaps over dinner." "Mr. Caldwell," Chen's voice cooled further, "this is a straightforward business proposition. I'll send the terms to your lawyer. You have 48 hours to accept or decline." The call ended, leaving Nicholas standing in his building's lobby, clutching the magazine with Olivia's face staring back at him. For the first time since his downfall began, he felt a surge of his old power. He finally had leverage, a way back into Olivia's world, a means to force her to acknowledge him again. What he didn't know, what he couldn't possibly suspect, was that Eliza Chen's call wasn't a coincidence or a genuine offer. It was bait in a trap that had been months in the making, a trap designed by Olivia herself, who understood Nicholas's psychology better than anyone, and she was counting on him to react exactly as he just had. 8 months after the wedding, the Southampton estate loomed against the stormy autumn sky, its immaculate grounds now showing subtle signs of neglect. Inside, Nicholas Caldwell sat alone in his study, surrounded by empty bottles and financial statements. The pristine organization that had once defined his workspace had given way to chaotic piles of papers, unanswered correspondence, and half-empty glasses. He stared at his laptop screen, refreshing his email obsessively. 2 weeks had passed since Eliza Chen's call about acquiring Meridian Technologies, and despite his counteroffer, deliberately priced 40% above market value, there had been no response. His attempt to leverage the one valuable asset he still controlled had been met with silence. Nicholas closed the laptop with a frustrated snap and poured another scotch. The Macallan 25-year he once savored had been replaced by whatever was on sale at the local liquor store. Small economies for a man who had once spent without thought. His phone rang, one of the few people who still called him directly. "What?" he answered without checking the caller ID. "Good morning to you too, sunshine," came Victor Reynolds' sardonic voice. Despite taking the position at Westridge Partners, Victor maintained sporadic contact with Nicholas, part loyalty, part morbid curiosity about his former partner's downward spiral. "What do you want, Victor? Thought you might want a heads up. The Meridian Tech you've been holding on to. Olivia Matthews just announced a partnership with NetGuard for their security protocols. Press release went out an hour ago." Nicholas felt the blood drain from his face. NetGuard was Meridian's chief competitor, with inferior technology but stronger market presence. "That's impossible," he said. "Chen approached me about acquiring Meridian specifically for FinAssist." Victor's silence carried a hint of pity. "Did you get that in writing?" Nicholas's mind raced. Chen had called him personally, not through official channels. There had been no formal offer, just verbal interest followed by silence when he counter-proposed. "Son of a bitch," he whispered, the realization crashing over him. It was a feint. "Looks that way," Victor confirmed. "Word is, Matthews personally negotiated the NetGuard deal. 3-year exclusive contract, full integration with her platform. The implications were staggering. Olivia had outmaneuvered him completely. By having Chen dangle the possibility of acquiring Meridian, she had kept him holding on to an asset while its value plummeted. Now with NetGuard locked in as her security partner, Meridian's market appeal had essentially vanished overnight. "There's more," Victor continued, his tone careful. "Caldwell International is filing suit against you for the inappropriate transfer of Meridian's IP to your personal holdings. Their lawyers contacted me this morning for a deposition." Nicholas laughed, a harsh, brittle sound. "Of course they are. Anything else while you're delivering the good news?" "Yeah," Victor paused. "I saw Jonathan at a conference last week. He mentioned he's been consulting for FinAssist. Just thought you should know." After the call ended, Nicholas hurled his phone against the wall, watching with detached interest as it shattered into pieces. Jonathan Wells, his oldest friend, the person who knew more about Nicholas's business practices than anyone, was now working with Olivia. The betrayal was complete. Nicholas poured another drink, moving to the window that overlooked the Atlantic. Grey waves crashed against the shore, mirroring the turbulence within him. In less than a year, he had lost everything that defined him. His company, his reputation, his fortune, and now, potentially, his freedom, if the lawsuit proceeded. For the first time in his adult life, Nicholas Caldwell had no plan, no strategy, no move to make. He had hit rock bottom. Across the city, in FinAssist's expanded offices, Olivia Matthews led her executive team through the quarterly review. The company had grown to 48 employees, with plans to double that number by year's end. The NetGuard security partnership announcement had sent their pre-launch valuation soaring. The beta testing results exceeded projections by 22%, Olivia explained, gesturing to the data visualization on the wall screen. User feedback shows particular enthusiasm for the cash flow prediction algorithm and the tax optimization features. Jonathan Wells, now FinAssist's chief legal advisor, nodded approvingly. The regulatory compliance component is getting attention from the financial press. 3 different banking associations have reached out about potential partnerships. Olivia acknowledged this with a satisfied smile. Having Jonathan on her team had been a strategic coup, not just for his legal expertise, but for the insider knowledge he brought about Nicholas's business practices. While she had never explicitly asked him to betray confidences, his insights into potential vulnerabilities and opportunities had proven invaluable. "Rebecca, where are we on the marketing rollout?" Olivia turned to her CMO and best friend. Rebecca pulled up a sleek presentation. "Launch campaign is ready to go. We've secured placements in all major business publications, plus targeted digital advertising in the small business sector. The Forbes cover story runs next month." As the meeting continued, Olivia maintained her composed exterior, while part of her mind drifted to the NetGuard announcement. She knew Nicholas would have seen it by now, would understand how thoroughly she had played him. The thought brought no joy, only a complicated mixture of vindication and an emotion she refused to name. After the team dispersed, Megan stopped by Olivia's office. Unlike Rebecca, who had embraced the startup's frenetic energy, Olivia's sister maintained a healthy skepticism about her rapid transformation. "Another successful meeting?" Megan asked, settling into a chair opposite Olivia's desk. "Things are aligning exactly as planned," Olivia confirmed, closing her laptop. Megan studied her sister carefully. "Including the Nicholas situation?" Olivia's expression remained neutral. "Meridian was overvalued. He'll learn that soon enough." "That's not what I asked." Olivia sighed, finally meeting her sister's gaze. "What do you want me to say, Meg? That I orchestrated a business maneuver specifically to hurt him? That I take satisfaction in watching him lose everything? Do you?" The question hung in the air between them. Olivia turned to look out her office window, a habit she had unconsciously adopted from Nicholas. "I'm building something important," she said finally. "Something that helps people. If Nicholas stands in the way of that, I'll remove the obstacle. It's business, not personal." "Bullshit," Megan said gently. "It's both, and you know it." Olivia didn't deny this. The truth was more complicated than she allowed anyone to see. Her success was genuine. Assist was revolutionary, her business acumen real, but the drive behind it, the relentless energy that propelled her 18-hour workdays and strategic brilliance, was fueled by something darker than entrepreneurial passion. "I haven't forgotten what he did," Olivia admitted quietly. "I don't think I ever will." "I'm not suggesting you should." Megan reached across the desk to take her sister's hand. "I'm just worried about what happens when you finally won completely, when there's nothing left of him to defeat." Olivia withdrew her hand, her expression closing like a vault. "There's a board meeting at 3. I should prepare." It was a dismissal, and both sisters knew it. As Megan left, Olivia returned to her computer, pulling up the latest intelligence on Nicholas's financial situation, reports delivered weekly by the private investigator she had hired to track his downfall. Clinical, detailed, comprehensive. Just business, she told herself again. Not personal at all. Nicholas's attempt to sell Meridian Technologies ended in humiliation. Without Assist or another major platform as a potential partner, the company's value had plummeted by 60%. When he finally found a buyer, a mid-tier security firm looking to acquire cheap assets, the sale barely covered his mounting legal fees from the Caldwell International lawsuit. The Southampton estate was the next to go, sold in a private transaction to avoid the publicity of an auction. The penthouse followed shortly after, downsized for a 2-bedroom apartment in Murray Hill that felt like a cage after years of palatial living. In a final blow, his remaining investment portfolio collapsed when his financial advisor was indicted for fraud, a man Nicholas had chosen for his aggressive strategies and willingness to skirt regulations. The SEC investigation that followed froze his remaining liquid assets. 6 weeks after Victor's call about the NetGuard deal, Nicholas sat in a midtown bar at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, nursing a watered-down whiskey and watching Bloomberg TV with detached interest. A segment about tech's rising stars appeared, featuring Olivia alongside other entrepreneurs. Assist's approach to democratizing financial tools represents a paradigm shift, the commentator explained over footage of Olivia leading a product demonstration. Matthews has positioned herself as the antithesis of old guard financial technology, emphasizing transparency and accessibility over exclusivity. The bartender noticed Nicholas's intense focus on the screen. "That lady's something else, right? My sister runs a bakery, been using their beta program. Says it's changed her whole business." Nicholas didn't respond, his eyes fixed on Olivia's image. She looked nothing like the woman he had known, or thought he knew. This Olivia moved with confidence, spoke with authority, commanded attention without demanding it. Her success wasn't just professional, it was a complete reinvention. "Another?" The bartender nodded toward Nicholas's empty glass. "Make it a double," Nicholas muttered, turning away from the screen as the segment ended. A man in a rumpled suit slid onto the stool next to him. "Caldwell, that you?" Nicholas glanced over, recognizing Harold Dunning, a former business associate he'd once dismissed as insignificant, a middle manager type who'd never had the vision or courage to reach the top tiers. "Harold," Nicholas acknowledged flatly, hoping the man would take the hint and leave. "Thought that was you?" Harold continued, oblivious to Nicholas's discomfort. "Don't see you around the circuit much these days. Heard things got rough after, well..." He trailed off, uncertain how to delicately reference Nicholas's spectacular downfall. "Did you need something?" Nicholas asked coldly. Harold shifted awkwardly. "Actually, I'm heading a new division at Brighton Corp. We might have an opportunity. Advisory role, nothing fancy, but could be a foot back in the door." Nicholas stared at him, comprehension dawning slowly through the alcohol haze. This man, someone he would have previously ignored at industry events, was offering him charity, a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. Pride warred with desperation in Nicholas's chest. 6 months ago, he would have eviscerated Harold for the presumption. Now he found himself asking, what's the compensation? Harold named a figure that was less than 10% of what Nicholas once earned. Plus performance bonuses, of course, and the title would be senior consultant. Not even a vice president position, a consultant, the corporate equivalent of a temp worker. "I'll think about it," Nicholas lied, turning back to his drink. After Harold left, Nicholas sat alone, the bar gradually filling with after-work crowds, young professionals with brightness in their eyes and careers ahead of them. He paid his tab and walked out into the fading autumn light, with nowhere particular to go and no one expecting him. His phone, a basic replacement for the one he'd destroyed, buzzed with a text from Victor. Board voted to proceed with the lawsuit. Full discovery starts next week. You should call your lawyer. Nicholas pocketed the phone without responding. His lawyer, now a junior associate at a second-tier firm rather than the senior partner at a white shoe practice he once retained, had already explained the dire outlook. The lawsuit would drain his remaining resources and likely end in a judgment against him. As he walked aimlessly through Midtown, Nicholas passed a bookstore window displaying business bestsellers. Prominent among them was a new release, Trust Reset, Rebuilding Financial Confidence in the Digital Age by Jonathan Wells, his former best friend and attorney. Nicholas entered the store, picking up a copy and flipping to the acknowledgements. There it was, midway through the paragraph of thanks. And to Olivia Matthews, whose courage and vision inspired a new approach to business ethics. He replaced the book on the shelf, a bitter taste in his mouth. Jonathan had not just abandoned him professionally, he had aligned himself morally with Olivia's narrative. Outside again, Nicholas found himself walking toward Central Park, where couples strolled hand in hand and tourists snapped photos of the early fall foliage. He sat heavily on a bench, watching a group of children chase each other across the grass, their laughter a distant reminder of simple joys he had always been too busy to notice. For the first time since his downfall began, Nicholas allowed himself to consider a terrifying question. What if Olivia had been right about him all along? You've been featured in Women in Tech, alongside Sheryl Sandberg and Susan Wojcicki, Rebecca announced, dropping the magazine on Olivia's desk. We've officially arrived. Olivia glanced at the cover, her image prominently displayed between the two tech giants. The photographer made me look severe. The photographer captured exactly what you wanted projected. Competence, determination, success, Rebecca countered. You're not selling cosmetics, Liv. You're selling financial revolution. Olivia smiled faintly. Rebecca wasn't wrong. Every aspect of her public image had been carefully cultivated, from her wardrobe of architectural power suits to her measured, authoritative speaking style. She had studied female business leaders, identifying which traits earned respect rather than resentment, which behaviors conveyed confidence without triggering the likability trap that ensnared so many women in business. The NetGuard integration is complete, Rebecca continued, switching to business mode. Launch is locked for next month. Press is lined up, investors are salivating, and pre-registrations are triple projections. And the Meridian situation? Rebecca's expression turned cautious. Nicholas sold it yesterday to CompSec at a massive loss. Olivia nodded, betraying no reaction. As expected. Eliza Chen called. She's impressed with how you handled everything. Says the strategy was elegantly ruthless. Coming from Chen, this was high praise indeed. Olivia should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt oddly hollow, as though success without meaningful opposition had lost its savor. The Foundation's gala is next week, Olivia said, changing the subject. Are the arrangements finalized? The Olivia Matthews Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors had grown alongside FinAssist, channeling a percentage of the company's profits into support services, legal aid, and education. The annual gala was its primary fundraising event, attended by New York's elite and extensively covered by the press. Everything's set, Rebecca confirmed. We're honoring 3 survivors this year, including that actress who left her abusive producer husband. Senator Harris confirmed her attendance, along with most of the tech and finance A-list. Good, Olivia said, though her mind had already moved to the next item on her endless agenda. What about the Series B preparations? Rebecca hesitated. Actually, there's something else we should discuss first. Jonathan received information that might interest you. Olivia looked up sharply. About the lawsuit? No, something else. Harold Dunning from Brighton Corp approached Nicholas with a job offer, a low-level consulting position. Olivia's expression remained neutral, though something flickered in her eyes. Did he take it? That's just it. Nicholas turned it down, rather dramatically according to Harold, told him he wasn't interested in charity from second-rate companies. Olivia's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. Even in ruins, Nicholas's arrogance remained intact. Then yesterday, Rebecca continued, Nicholas withdrew all his remaining funds from Citibank, closed his accounts completely. This was unexpected. Olivia frowned slightly. Did Jonathan's sources indicate why? Rebecca shook her head. That's all we know. It's odd timing with the lawsuit proceeding. Olivia stared out her window thoughtfully. Nicholas liquidating his assets didn't align with his psychological profile. Despite everything, he had clung to the trappings of his former life. Maintaining appearances had always been paramount to him. "Have our investigator intensify surveillance," she said finally. "I want to know what he's planning." After Rebecca left, Olivia remained at her desk, lost in thought. Her revenge had succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. Nicholas was financially ruined, professionally ostracized, socially irrelevant. The lawsuit would complete his destruction, stripping away any illusion that his fall was temporary. She had won completely, irrevocably. So why did victory taste so ashen on her tongue? Her phone rang, her father calling from his retirement community in Florida. "How's my corporate titan today?" Richard Matthews asked warmly. "Busy as always," Olivia replied, her voice softening as it always did for her father. "How are you feeling?" "Better every day. The doctors are impressed with my recovery." Her father had suffered a minor heart attack 3 months earlier, a frightening reminder of life's fragility that had temporarily pulled Olivia away from her relentless work schedule. "You're still taking it easy?" "As ordered, though I'm thinking of teaching a literature course at the community college here. Just one class, nothing strenuous." Olivia smiled, picturing her father in front of students again, his eyes lighting up as he discussed Shakespeare or Austen. "That sounds perfect for you." "Enough about me," Richard said. "I saw you in Time magazine last week. My daughter, changing the financial world. Your mother would have been so proud." The mention of her mother, who had died of cancer when Olivia was in college, brought a familiar ache. "I hope so. I know so." Richard's voice turned gentle. "But she would also want to know if you're happy, Livy. Not just successful, happy." The question echoed Megan's concerns from weeks earlier. Olivia had no ready answer. "I'm fulfilled," she said finally. "The work matters. The foundation is helping people. That's enough." Her father's silence suggested he disagreed, but he didn't press the issue. "I'll be in New York next week for your gala. I've got my tuxedo pressed and ready." After they said their goodbyes, Olivia sat in the growing twilight of her office, the city lights beginning to twinkle beyond her window. On paper, her life was a triumph, a textbook example of overcoming adversity to achieve extraordinary success. She had more money, power, and respect than she had ever imagined possible. Yet in quiet moments like this, Olivia confronted an uncomfortable truth. Her victory over Nicholas had consumed her. Every business decision, every strategic move, every public appearance had been calculated not just for success, but specifically as a counterpoint to his failure. She had defined herself in opposition to him, and now that he was effectively destroyed, a disquieting question emerged. Who was Olivia Matthews without Nicholas Caldwell to defeat? Her contemplation was interrupted by an urgent knock. Rebecca entered without waiting for a response, her expression alarmed. "Liv, you need to see this." She placed her tablet on the desk, open to a financial news site. The headline made Olivia's breath catch. "Financial Technology Breakthrough. Unknown Startup Secures Patent for Revolutionary AI Algorithm." Below was a grainy photo of Nicholas Caldwell, looking thinner and harder than in his corporate days, shaking hands with an elderly Asian man identified as Dr. Wei Zhang, former head of MIT's Artificial Intelligence Lab. "This was filed 2 hours ago," Rebecca explained urgently. "Nicholas has been working with Zhang in secret for months. The patent they just secured, it's for an algorithm that essentially makes our core technology obsolete before we even launch." Olivia stared at the screen, her mind racing. This explained everything: the liquidated accounts, the rejected job offer. Nicholas hadn't been surrendering, he had been repositioning. "How did we miss this?" she demanded. "Zhang is notoriously reclusive, works completely off the grid. And Rebecca hesitated. "Nicholas apparently used Caroline's playbook against us. The whole downward spiral, the public drinking, the apparent depression. Our investigator says it was all carefully staged for our benefit." Olivia's shock gave way to something unexpected. A surge of admiration mixed with a strange, almost electric excitement. The game wasn't over. The opponent she had thought destroyed had made a brilliant counter-move. "What's our exposure?" she asked, her strategic mind already calculating options. "Significant. Their patent covers the predictive modeling core that powers our platform. We either license from them, which gives Nicholas control, or we rebuild from scratch, which delays launch by at least a year." Olivia stood, moving to the window to look out at the city. After a long moment, She turned back to Rebecca, a new resolve hardening her features. "Call the team in. Emergency meeting in 30 minutes. And get Jonathan on the phone. I need to know exactly what legal options we have." As Rebecca hurried out, Olivia returned to Nicholas's image on the screen. His eyes held a challenge that spoke directly to her. The same arrogance she had once despised, now reignited with purpose. Just when she thought the game was won, Nicholas Caldwell had risen from the ashes with one goal: to reclaim everything she had taken from him. And deep down, in a place Olivia would never publicly acknowledge, a small voice whispered a disturbing truth. Part of her was glad. 3 years later, the Manhattan skyline glittered in the warm June evening as Olivia Matthews stood at the podium of the Waldorf Astoria's Grand Ballroom, accepting Ernst & Young's Entrepreneur of the Year award. At 35, she had become a business icon. Her company, FinAssist, now valued at over $3 billion, her personal wealth estimated north of $500 million. Innovation isn't just about technology, she addressed the audience of industry leaders. It's about resilience, the ability to adapt when the path forward isn't clear. Her voice carried the quiet authority that had become her trademark. 3 years ago, when our original platform faced an unexpected patent challenge, we had a choice: fight a protracted legal battle or reimagine our entire approach. The audience nodded knowingly. The business world still spoke of Olivia's pivot as a case study in strategic brilliance. When Nicholas Caldwell and Dr. Zhang had secured their patent, FinAssist had appeared doomed. Instead, Olivia had completely restructured the company's technology, creating an even more powerful platform that revolutionized financial accessibility for small businesses worldwide. "We chose reinvention," she continued, "and discovered that our greatest obstacle became our greatest opportunity." What she didn't mention was the cost of that reinvention: 18 months of around-the-clock work, her entire leadership team living on caffeine and determination, her own health suffering as she drove herself and her company toward an impossible deadline. Or how, in the darkest moments, it was the thought of Nicholas winning that had kept her going. After the ceremony, Olivia circulated through the crowd, accepting congratulations with practiced grace. Her team watched with pride from their table, Rebecca, now her chief operating officer, Jonathan, her general counsel, and several newer executives who had joined during FinAssist's explosive growth phase. "Senator Williams is hoping for a moment of your time," her chief of staff murmured, appearing discreetly at her elbow. "He's by the east entrance." Olivia nodded, making her way through the crowd. Political connections had become increasingly important as FinAssist expanded globally, navigating complex regulatory environments across different countries. "Ms. Matthews," the senator greeted her warmly. "Congratulations. That speech was inspiring." "Thank you, Senator. I appreciate your support of our financial literacy initiative." They exchanged pleasantries about pending legislation that would impact the fintech sector. As they spoke, Olivia's gaze drifted past the senator's shoulder, catching on a figure standing near the bar. A man in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, older but still striking, watching her with an intensity that was immediately familiar. Nicholas Caldwell. The senator continued speaking, but Olivia no longer heard him. It had been nearly 2 years since she had last seen Nicholas in person, at a technology conference, where they had deliberately avoided each other, maintaining the Cold War that had defined their relationship since the patent battle. After securing his algorithm patent, Nicholas had leveraged it into a new company, Quantum Finance, which competed directly with FinAssist in certain markets. While Olivia had successfully pivoted her technology to avoid the patent conflict, the two companies remained fierce rivals, though Quantum operated on a smaller scale and focused primarily on high-net-worth clients rather than FinAssist's broader market approach. "Excuse me, Senator," Olivia said smoothly. "There's someone I need to speak with. My office will follow up about that committee hearing." She moved through the crowd with purpose, never taking her eyes off Nicholas. He remained at the bar, watching her approach with an unreadable expression. "Nicholas," she said when she reached him, her voice neutral, "I didn't expect to see you here." "Olivia?" He nodded slightly, raising his glass in a small toast. "Congratulations on your award." Up close, she could see the years had changed him. The arrogance remained in his posture, but his eyes held a weariness that hadn't been there before. Success had returned to him, but not dominance, not the untouchable power he once possessed. "What brings you to an Ernst & Young event?" she asked directly. Nicholas's company wasn't large enough to merit an invitation to such an exclusive gathering. "I'm Dr. Zhang's +1, he explained, gesturing toward a table where the elderly scientist sat chatting with other guests. "He's receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award later." An awkward silence fell between them. Two people with too much history and too little resolution. "Your speech was impressive," Nicholas said finally. "Very inspirational." Olivia detected a hint of the old sarcasm, but also something unexpected, genuine respect. "Thank you." She paused, then added, "Quantum's expanding into the European market, I hear. Congratulations." Nicholas's eyes narrowed slightly, unsurprised that she tracked his company's movements. "Small steps. Nothing like Finassist's global domination. We have different models." "Indeed we do." His gaze intensified. "Your foundation's work with financial abuse survivors is commendable." The comment caught her off guard. The Olivia Matthews Foundation had recently launched a specialized program focused on helping domestic violence survivors achieve financial independence, a particularly personal cause. Before she could respond, Rebecca appeared at her side. "Liv, the Forbes reporter, is waiting for that exclusive." Her eyes flicked to Nicholas, cold with undisguised hostility. "Sorry to interrupt." Nicholas smiled thinly. "Miss Parker, still the loyal guardian." "Mr. Caldwell," Rebecca acknowledged with barely concealed contempt. Olivia touched Rebecca's arm gently. "I'll be there in a moment." After Rebecca reluctantly departed, Nicholas spoke quietly. "She still hates me. Can't say I blame her." "Rebecca is protective," Olivia said simply. "She's also the reason Finassist survived your patent maneuver." "I know." Nicholas sipped his drink. "You've built something remarkable, Olivia. Something I never saw in you when we were together." The admission seemed to cost him effort. "That was my loss." The unexpected candor left her momentarily speechless. This wasn't the Nicholas she remembered, the man incapable of acknowledging others' achievements, especially hers. "We should talk," he said suddenly. "Privately. Not here, not now, but soon. There's something you should know." Alarm bells rang in Olivia's mind. "If this is about business—" "It's not." His expression turned grave. "It's about Dr. Zhang and a discovery he's made that changes everything for both our companies." Before she could question him further, they were interrupted by the event coordinator announcing the next award presentation. The moment broken, Nicholas handed her his card, plain black with just his name and a phone number. "Call me when you're ready to listen," he said, then walked away toward Dr. Zhang's table. Olivia stared after him, the card heavy in her hand, feeling as though the ground had shifted beneath her feet. 2 weeks later, Nicholas Caldwell sat in his modest but elegant office in a converted Soho loft building, reviewing Quantum Finance's quarterly report. The numbers were solid, if unspectacular. Profitable growth, but nothing approaching Finassist's meteoric rise. His phone rang with the private number he'd given only to Dr. Zhang and a handful of others. "She finally called," his assistant announced without preamble. Nicholas checked his watch. 9:30 p.m. on a Friday. "Put her through." There was a click. Then Olivia's voice. "Nicholas, this is unexpected timing." "You've been busy," he replied evenly. "The London expansion, the Senate testimony, the new partnership with Asian Markets Bank." He didn't add that he tracked her movements as closely as she tracked his. "You said we needed to talk about Dr. Zhang," Olivia said, bypassing small talk. "What's this about?" "Not over the phone." Nicholas stood, moving to the window overlooking the nighttime city. "Are you free tomorrow morning? Breakfast at the Lowell, say 8? A pause, then, "Fine, but I have a meeting at 9:30. "This won't take long," Nicholas assured her, though he knew the information he planned to share would upend her carefully structured world. The following morning, Nicholas arrived at the Lowell Hotel 20 minutes early, securing a private table in the corner of the restaurant. He had dressed carefully, a charcoal Tom Ford suit that projected success without ostentation, a subtle reminder that while he had fallen, he had also risen again, if not to his former heights. Olivia arrived precisely at 8, wearing a cream Armani pantsuit that contrasted sharply with her dark hair, now styled in a sophisticated bob. The maitre d' escorted her to the table, where Nicholas stood to greet her. "You look well," he said, a simple truth rather than flattery. "Thank you." She took her seat, declining his assistance. "I assume this isn't a social call." Nicholas sighed. "Always direct. Some things don't change. Some things shouldn't have to. Her eyes met his, challenging. What's going on with Dr. Zhang? Nicholas waited as the waiter poured coffee, then leaned forward. He's dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors give him 3 months, maybe less. Olivia's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry to hear that. He's a brilliant man. Brilliant and forward-thinking, Nicholas added, which is why he's made arrangements for his intellectual property after his death. Understanding dawned in Olivia's eyes. The algorithm patent, among other things. Zhang has continued his research. What we patented 3 years ago is primitive, compared to what he's developed since. Olivia's coffee remained untouched. Why are you telling me this? Nicholas held her gaze steadily. Because Zhang has instructed that upon his death, all his research, including the patent that powers quantum, will be transferred to a foundation he's establishing. A foundation that will determine how the technology can best serve humanity rather than profit. That's admirable, Olivia said cautiously. He wants you to lead it. The bombshell landed with perfect precision. Olivia's composure slipped momentarily, genuine shock registering on her face. What? Why would he? Because he's been watching you, Olivia. Your choices. How you've used your success. The foundation, your testimony on financial inclusion, the educational initiatives. Nicholas's voice carried a complex mix of pride and regret. He believes you'll use his technology ethically, for broad benefit, rather than narrow gain. Olivia shook her head in disbelief. And you're just accepting this? Your company is built on his algorithm. I don't have a choice, Nicholas said quietly. But even if I did, he hesitated, then continued with unexpected honesty. I'd support his decision. You deserve this. Olivia studied him, searching for deception, for the manipulative strategy beneath the surface. What's your angle, Nicholas? What do you get out of this? Nothing tangible. His smile held no warmth. Quantum will effectively cease to exist in its current form once the patent transfers. I'll retain the client relationships and infrastructure, but without the core technology, we become just another boutique financial services firm. Then why? Because Zhang made it clear this was happening with or without my cooperation. Nicholas leaned back, a familiar calculation entering his expression. I'm pragmatic enough to recognize when fighting is pointless. Olivia didn't believe him, couldn't believe this was the full story. Nicholas Caldwell had never surrendered anything without a hidden agenda. There's more, she stated, rather than asked. Nicholas nodded, a flicker of the old admiration crossing his face. She had always been perceptive. Zhang wants us to co-lead the transition, work together to determine how his technology can be integrated with Finisyst's platform for maximum impact. That's impossible, Olivia said flatly. That's his condition, non-negotiable. Breakfast arrived, poached eggs and avocado toast for her, steak and eggs for him. Neither touched their food. Why would he insist on that? Olivia asked finally, knowing our history. Because he's a scientist, not a business person. He sees only the potential synergy between your market reach and my technical understanding of his work. Nicholas hesitated. And because he believes in redemption. The word hung between them, laden with meaning. Redemption. After everything, the betrayal, the violence, the years of corporate warfare, was such a thing even possible? I need to think about this, Olivia said, her mask of control firmly back in place. Of course. Zhang would like to meet with you next week if you're willing. His health is failing rapidly. Olivia nodded, reaching for her untouched coffee. I'll have my office contact you about arrangements. As she moved to leave, Nicholas spoke again, his voice softer than she remembered. Olivia, for what it's worth, I am sorry for everything. Not just the wedding, but for not seeing you, truly seeing you when we were together. She paused, half standing, her expression unreadable. It took me a long time to realize that the worst day of my life was actually the best thing that ever happened to me. She straightened to her full height. I don't forgive you, Nicholas, but I'm not defined by you anymore either. With that, she walked away, leaving Nicholas alone with 2 untouched breakfasts and the hollow victory of having delivered news that would irrevocably alter the power dynamic between them once again. The following week brought a series of emergency meetings at Finisyst's headquarters. Olivia had verified Nicholas's claims independently. Dr. Zhang was indeed dying, and his plans for his intellectual property were exactly as described. The implications for both companies were seismic. "It's an incredible opportunity," Jonathan admitted during a late-night strategy session. "Zhang's algorithm combined with our platform would create an unassailable market position." "Or it's an elaborate trap," Rebecca countered, pacing the conference room. "Nicholas destroys what he can't control, that's who he is." Olivia studied the financial projections on her tablet. Zhang's foundation would control the patent, not Nicholas. He'd be essentially surrendering his company's core value. "Unless there's something we're missing," Rebecca insisted. "Some hidden clause, some legal maneuver." "I've reviewed everything," Jonathan said wearily. "The documents are ironclad. Zhang is sincere in his intentions." "Then why involve Nicholas at all?" Rebecca demanded. "Why not just transfer everything directly to Olivia?" Olivia looked up from her tablet. "Because Nicholas understands the algorithm at a level none of us do. He spent 3 years working directly with Zhang, implementing applications we haven't even considered." The admission cost her pride, but it was true. While FinAssist had grown larger and more profitable, Quantum had pushed technological boundaries in ways that were genuinely innovative. "So we need him," Rebecca said flatly. "For the transition period, yes." Olivia set down her tablet, her decision made. "I'm meeting with Zhang tomorrow. If I'm satisfied with his intentions, I'll agree to his terms." After the others had left, Olivia remained in the conference room, staring out at the city lights. The prospect of working directly with Nicholas again filled her with a complex mixture of dread, anger, and something else, an emotion she refused to name. Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "Dad's birthday dinner still on for Sunday?" Olivia smiled faintly. Her father had recovered fully from his heart attack and was now teaching literature part-time at Columbia, having moved back to New York to be closer to his daughters. His steady presence had been an anchor during the tumultuous years of building FinAssist. "Wouldn't miss it," she replied. "Is Sean coming?" Sean was Megan's husband of 2 years, a pediatric surgeon Olivia had helped set up a foundation for children with rare diseases. "Of course, he's making Dad's favorite chocolate cake, and I might have news to share." Olivia's smile widened at the hint. Megan had been trying to get pregnant for the past year. "Can't wait to hear it," she texted back. Setting down her phone, Olivia was struck by the contrast between her personal and professional lives. While her business had thrived through conflict and competition, her family had grown through connection and support. Now, those worlds were colliding in unexpected ways. Nicholas re-entering her life just as she was finding balance. The next morning, Olivia arrived at Dr. Zhang's Upper East Side apartment with a sense of trepidation. Nicholas met her in the lobby, his expression somber. "He's having a good day," Nicholas said as they rode the elevator. "But he tires easily." "How long have you known?" "About his illness." 6 months. He insisted on keeping it private until arrangements were finalized. The elevator opened directly into a spacious penthouse filled with books, scientific journals, and complex technical diagrams covering nearly every wall. Dr. Wei Zhang sat in a wheelchair by the window, small and frail, but with eyes that remained sharp and observant. "Ms. Matthews," he greeted her with a nod. "Thank you for coming. Please sit." Over the next hour, Zhang outlined his vision for the foundation that would bear his name, how his life's work could transform financial access globally if implemented ethically. He spoke with the urgency of a man who knew his time was limited, occasionally pausing for Nicholas to clarify technical details. "The algorithm can predict economic outcomes with unprecedented accuracy," Zhang explained. "In the right hands, it could help prevent financial crises, direct resources where they're most needed, create opportunity where none existed. In the wrong hands, it could be weaponized," Nicholas added quietly, "used to manipulate markets, exploit vulnerabilities." Zhang nodded. "Which is why I need both of you. Nicholas understands the technology's capabilities and limitations. You, Ms. Matthews, understand how to deploy it for maximum benefit. Why not just license it to FinAssist?" Olivia asked directly. Zhang smiled faintly. "Because power unchecked leads to corruption. I've watched both of you. How you build, how you fall, how you recover. Your strengths and flaws balance each other." "Our history is complicated," Olivia said, glancing at Nicholas. "Life is complicated," Zhang replied simply. "My time is not. Will you accept this responsibility, Ms. Matthews? Will you work with Nicholas to ensure my legacy benefits humanity rather than a privileged few?" Olivia looked between the dying scientist and the man who had once shattered her world. The decision before her wasn't just about business strategy or personal vindication. It was about something larger than either. "I'll need complete autonomy in how we structure the foundation," she said finally. "Final decision-making authority on implementation." Zhang nodded. "Reasonable. Nicholas will have technical oversight, but no veto power over deployment decisions. Is this acceptable to you, Nicholas?" Nicholas met Olivia's eyes across the room. "Yes, I trust her judgment." The words hung in the air between them, an acknowledgement that would have seemed impossible 3 years earlier. As they left Zhang's apartment an hour later, arrangements finalized and documents signed, a heavy silence fell between them. In the lobby, Nicholas turned to her. "There's something else you should know," he said quietly. "Something not in the official documents." Olivia tensed. "What?" "Zhang offered me an alternative. He would have allowed Quantum to retain exclusive rights to the algorithm if I agreed to certain ethical constraints." Olivia's eyes narrowed. "Why didn't you take it?" Nicholas looked away, his profile sharp against the afternoon light streaming through the lobby windows. "Because you'll do more good with it than I ever would. That's the truth Zhang saw, even if I fought against admitting it." Before Olivia could respond, her phone rang, her father's ringtone. She answered quickly, her expression changing from confusion to alarm in seconds. "When?" she demanded. "Which hospital? I'm on my way." She ended the call, already moving toward the door. "What happened?" Nicholas asked, concern evident in his voice. "My sister collapsed at work. They think it might be an ectopic pregnancy." Olivia's voice shook slightly, a rare breach in her composure. "I need to get to NYU Medical Center." "My car's outside," Nicholas said without hesitation. "I'll drive you." Under any other circumstances, Olivia would have refused, but fear for her sister overrode everything else. She nodded once, following him to the black Tesla parked at the curb. The drive to the hospital passed in tense silence, Nicholas navigating midday traffic with practiced efficiency, while Olivia made calls. To her father, to Megan's husband, to her office cancelling meetings. When they arrived at the emergency entrance, Nicholas pulled up to the curb. "Go. I'll park and find you." Olivia paused, 1 foot out the door. "You don't need to stay." "I know," he said simply. Inside, Olivia found her father pacing the waiting area, his face drawn with worry. "They've taken her to surgery," Richard Matthews explained, embracing his daughter. "Sean's scrubbing in to assist, pulled rank to be in there with her." Olivia felt a wave of gratitude for her brother-in-law's position at the hospital. "What happened?" "She was in a meeting when she collapsed from pain. The initial ultrasound showed bleeding, possible rupture." Richard's voice cracked. "They said it's serious, Livy." They sat together, time crawling by in that peculiar hospital way, minutes stretching like hours. When Nicholas appeared with coffee for both of them, Richard looked confused. "Mr. Matthews," Nicholas said, offering his hand. "We met briefly at—" He stopped, unable to complete the sentence. "At what would have been my wedding to your daughter." Recognition dawned in Richard's eyes, followed by cold anger. "I remember." "Dad," Olivia interjected quietly. "Nicholas drove me here. He was with me when I got the call." Richard accepted this with a terse nod, taking the offered coffee without thanks. Nicholas retreated to a seat across the waiting area, giving them space while remaining present. A silent offer of support that Olivia found inexplicably comforting. 2 hours later, Sean emerged from the surgical area, still in scrubs, his face exhausted but relieved. "She's stable. We caught it before catastrophic rupture, but it was close, very close." "The baby?" Richard asked. Sean's expression fell. "We couldn't save the pregnancy, and the damage to the fallopian tube was severe. We had to remove it." The implication hung heavily. Megan's chances of natural conception, already challenged, were now significantly reduced. "Can we see her?" Olivia asked. "She's in recovery. One person at a time, just for a few minutes." Richard went first, leaving Olivia momentarily alone with Nicholas and Sean. An awkward silence fell until Sean extended his hand to Nicholas. "Thank you for bringing Olivia so quickly," he said, with the direct gratitude of a medical professional who understood the value of timely arrival. "Of course," Nicholas replied. "I'm glad Megan is stable." When Sean left to check on his wife, Nicholas moved closer to Olivia. "I should go. You need time with your family." Olivia nodded, suddenly exhausted. "Thank you for the ride. And the coffee." "Olivia!" Nicholas hesitated, then continued softly, "I know what family means to you. I'm truly sorry about Megan's loss." The sincerity in his voice, so different from the calculated charm she had once known, caught her off guard. In that moment, standing in a hospital waiting room with all pretense stripped away, Olivia saw something in Nicholas she had never fully recognized before, the capacity for genuine empathy. As he turned to leave, she called after him, "Nicholas." He paused, looking back. "About Zhang's foundation," she said. "We should meet next week, start planning the transition." It wasn't forgiveness. They were far beyond such simple resolution, but it was acknowledgement that whatever lay ahead, they would face it not as enemies but as reluctant collaborators in something larger than their shared past. Nicholas nodded once, understanding the complexity of what she was offering. "I'll have my office contact yours." As he walked away, Olivia was struck by the unpredictable nature of life's turning points. How a day that began with negotiating power and control had transformed into one defined by vulnerability and connection. The realization brought no easy answers, only the certainty that whatever resolution awaited them would be neither simple nor expected. And perhaps, she thought as she went to see her sister, that was exactly as it should be. Olivia's decision, the full impact on Nicholas's life, resolution of Olivia's emotional journey, how secondary characters' stories resolve, reflection on the transformation of both main characters, justice and consequences fully realized, emotional closure for Olivia. A final 18 months later. The Zhang Foundation headquarters occupied the top 3 floors of a sleek glass tower in downtown Manhattan. Unlike the imposing, ego-driven architecture of Caldwell Tower, the building projected transparency, its walls quite literally glass, its interior visible to the city it served. This had been Olivia's first design decision. Whatever they built would be the antithesis of the closed, exclusive financial world she had once orbited as Nicholas's fiancée. On this crisp December morning, Olivia stood in the Foundation's main conference room, surveying the team assembled around the massive oval table. 18 months of intensive collaboration had transformed Dr. Zhang's vision into a global enterprise that was already reshaping financial access in 27 countries. The microfinance initiative in Southeast Asia has exceeded projections by 42%, reported Arav Patel, the Foundation's head of international development. Loan repayment rates are holding at 98.7%, and new business formation in target communities has tripled. Olivia nodded approvingly. "And the algorithm's predictions?" "Remarkably accurate," said Nicholas from the opposite end of the table. Despite their professional détente, they maintained a careful physical distance during meetings, a boundary respected by everyone present. Small business survival rates in program regions are outperforming control areas by significant margins. The data confirms Zhang's theory that predictive financial support creates sustainable economic ecosystems. Nicholas had changed subtly over these months of collaboration. The arrogance remained, but it had been tempered by purpose. His technical brilliance, once directed solely toward profit and power, now served a mission larger than his own ambition. He dressed more casually, today in a charcoal sweater rather than his once signature bespoke suits, and had developed an unexpected rapport with the Foundation's diverse staff. "What about the New Orleans pilot?" Olivia asked, turning to Rebecca, who had joined the Foundation 6 months earlier, after ensuring Finassist's continued success under new leadership. "Launching next week," Rebecca confirmed, her initial hostility toward Nicholas having evolved into wary professional respect. "Local credit unions are fully integrated with the platform. If it works there, we can scale to 30 similar communities by Q3. The meeting continued with updates on various initiatives, from AI-driven financial literacy programs in underserved schools to algorithmic tools helping small businesses navigate complex regulatory environments. Zhang's technology, combined with Olivia's vision for accessibility and Nicholas's technical implementation, had created something neither could have built alone. As the team dispersed, Nicholas lingered, waiting until the room emptied before approaching Olivia. "The World Economic Forum requested our presence at Davos," he said, handing her the formal invitation. "They want a keynote on ethical AI and financial inclusion. Both of us." Olivia scanned the document. "That's significant exposure. Too significant to refuse," Nicholas noted. "Zhang's work deserves this platform." She nodded, though the prospect of presenting alongside Nicholas on the world stage stirred complicated feelings. Their working relationship had evolved into something unexpectedly effective, a partnership built on mutual respect and shared purpose, rather than the personal connection that had once bound them. They spoke almost exclusively about the Foundation's work, maintaining careful boundaries around their private lives. "I'll review my schedule," Olivia said neutrally. "Was there anything else?" Nicholas hesitated, an unusual break in his typical confidence. "Actually, yes. I received an offer from Stanford's business school, visiting professorship, focusing on ethical applications of financial technology. 1-year commitment." The news took Olivia by surprise. "You're considering leaving the Foundation?" "Not leaving, transitioning. The technical infrastructure is stable. The team you've built can handle implementation." He met her gaze directly. "And we both know the arrangement was always meant to be temporary." Olivia absorbed this, unsure why the news disturbed her equilibrium. Their collaboration had been Dr. Zhang's requirement, not their choice. With the Foundation established and flourishing, there was no logical reason for Nicholas to remain, no reason beyond the unexpected truth that their combined vision had created something remarkable. "Stanford would be lucky to have you," she said finally. "When would this start?" "Fall semester. I haven't accepted yet. Wanted to discuss transition planning with you first." The consideration, so unlike the Nicholas who once made unilateral decisions affecting them both, registered with Olivia. Before she could respond, her assistant appeared at the door. "Ms. Matthews, your sister's here for lunch." "Thank you, Emma. I'll be right out." Turning back to Nicholas, she added, "Let's discuss this tomorrow. My calendar's clear after 2. Nicholas nodded, gathering his materials. "Give my regards to Megan." In the reception area, Olivia found her sister waiting, a sleeping infant strapped to her chest in a carrier. Megan's face brightened at the sight of her. "Sorry I'm early," Megan said, embracing Olivia carefully to avoid disturbing the baby. "Sophia fell asleep in the taxi, and I didn't want to wait outside in the cold." Olivia smiled, gently touching her 4-month-old niece's downy head. After Megan's emergency surgery and the loss of her pregnancy, she and Sean had pursued adoption, a journey the Foundation had quietly supported through a program connecting prospective parents with children in need. "She's getting so big," Olivia marveled. "Let's go to my office where it's quieter." As they settled in her private space, designed with the same transparency as the rest of the building, though with smart glass walls that could be frosted for privacy, Megan studied her sister thoughtfully. "You seem preoccupied. Everything okay?" Olivia considered deflecting, then remembered her promise to be more open with her family. "Nicholas is considering a position at Stanford. Teaching." "Ah," Megan nodded, immediately understanding the significance. "So the forced partnership is coming to its natural conclusion." "It hasn't been forced for some time," Olivia admitted. "We've found a productive rhythm." Megan raised an eyebrow. "Just productive? What else would it be?" Olivia countered, perhaps too quickly. "I don't know. Dad mentioned seeing you both at that charity gala last month. Said you seemed comfortable together." Olivia sighed. Her father, ever the literature professor, read subtext into every interaction. "We've moved beyond our history, for the work's sake." Megan hummed non-committally, adjusting Sophia's blanket. "And you're okay with him leaving?" The question hung in the air, deceptively simple, yet loaded with implications Olivia wasn't prepared to examine. Before she could formulate a response, her phone buzzed with a news alert, something that happened rarely enough to warrant immediate attention. She glanced down, then froze, her expression changing so dramatically that Megan leaned forward in concern. "What is it?" Olivia turned the phone so her sister could see the headline, "Breaking: Caroline Winters arrested in Monaco for investment fraud." Beneath was a photograph of Nicholas's former mistress being escorted by authorities, her once glamorous appearance now haggard and desperate. "Oh my God," Megan breathed. "After all this time?" Olivia quickly scanned the article. "Apparently she's been running a Ponzi scheme targeting wealthy expatriates, claimed to have insider access to exclusive investment opportunities." She looked up at her sister. "They're saying the fraud exceeds $50 million. Does Nicholas know?" "I don't," Olivia began, then stopped as her phone rang with his direct line. "I guess he does now," she answered, putting the call on speaker, given Megan's awareness of the situation. I assume you've seen the news, Nicholas said without preamble. Just now, Olivia confirmed. Are you okay? The question surprised them both, a genuine concern for his emotional state rather than the professional implications. I'm fine, he replied after a brief pause, though the article mentions she was using our past relationship to establish credibility with victims. The Foundation may face questions. Always the strategist, even now. I'll have communications prepare a statement. Simple, factual, distancing, without appearing defensive. Thank you. Another pause. There's something else. The authorities found documentation suggesting Caroline was never actually pregnant. The whole thing, including the timing of her appearance at the wedding, was orchestrated specifically to cause maximum damage. The revelation landed with surprising weight. While the pregnancy's reality had been questioned over the years, confirmation of such calculated cruelty added a new dimension to the trauma of that day. Nicholas. Olivia began, unsure what to say. It's ancient history, he cut in, his tone deliberately neutral. I just thought you should know before it becomes public. We'll talk tomorrow about Stanford. The line went dead. Megan stared at Olivia, wide-eyed. Well, that was exactly like Nicholas, Olivia finished, setting down her phone. Tactical, practical, emotionally contained. Yet he called you immediately, Megan observed quietly. Not his PR team, not his lawyer. You. Olivia had no response to that. The Caroline Winters scandal dominated financial news for weeks. Her elaborate scheme had ensnared dozens of wealthy victims across Europe and the Middle East, many of whom had trusted her based on her claimed connection to Nicholas Caldwell. As details emerged, the extent of her pathology became clear. She had systematically targeted and exploited powerful men throughout her career, Nicholas being merely the most high-profile victim. For the Foundation, the potential public relations crisis became an unexpected opportunity. Rather than merely distancing themselves from the scandal, Olivia made the strategic decision to incorporate the case into their educational materials on financial fraud detection, transforming a personal embarrassment into a teaching tool that helped others avoid similar predators. Nicholas had supported this approach wholeheartedly, even contributing his own analysis of how emotional manipulation factored into investment fraud. The experience seemed to provide him a form of closure, addressing publicly what he had spent years trying to forget. As winter gave way to spring, the Stanford offer remained in limbo. Nicholas continued his work at the Foundation without mentioning his potential departure, and Olivia found herself unwilling to broach the subject. Their professional rapport had deepened into something neither was prepared to define. Not friendship exactly, but a complex mutual understanding forged through shared purpose and respect. On a mild April evening, Olivia worked late in her office, reviewing proposals for expanding the Foundation's work into rural communities. A knock at her door revealed Nicholas, jacket slung over his shoulder, looking uncharacteristically hesitant. "Do you have a minute?" he asked, remaining in the doorway until she gestured him in. "What's up?" Olivia set aside her tablet, noting his unusual demeanor. Nicholas took a seat across from her. "Stanford called today. They need my decision by the end of the week." "Oh," Olivia maintained her neutral expression through years of practice. "Have you decided?" "That depends." He met her gaze directly. "On whether you think I should stay." The question hung between them. The first time either had acknowledged that their professional relationship had become something more complex than mere collaboration. "The Foundation would benefit from your continued involvement," Olivia said carefully, "but that's not a reason to decline such an opportunity if it's what you want." Nicholas smiled faintly. "Still diplomatic after all these years. I'm not asking what the Foundation needs, Olivia. I'm asking what you think." The directness was so unlike their carefully maintained professional boundaries that it momentarily disarmed her. Before she could formulate a suitably measured response, a deeper truth escaped. "I think you'd be an excellent professor," she said, "and I think I'd miss working with you." The admission surprised them both. Nicholas's expression softened in a way she rarely witnessed. "We've built something meaningful here," he said quietly. "Something larger than either of us could have created alone." "Yes," Olivia agreed. "We have." A silence fell, not uncomfortable, but weighted with unspoken possibilities. Finally, Nicholas straightened, his decision apparently made. "I'm going to propose a compromise to Stanford. 1 semester per year, maintaining my role here the rest of the time." He stood to leave. "Unless you object." Olivia felt an unexpected lightness. "No objection. It's a sensible arrangement." At the door, Nicholas paused. "Are you attending the Founders Gala next week? For your foundation?" "Of course, I'm the keynote speaker." "Would you—" He hesitated, then continued with uncharacteristic uncertainty. "Would you consider allowing me to accompany you? As colleagues," he added quickly. The question, so ordinary in any other context, carried tremendous weight given their history. In the 3 years since their professional reunion, they had never attended any event together, except as separate representatives of the foundation. This would be different, a public acknowledgement of their evolved relationship. "As colleagues," Olivia repeated, testing the word and finding it simultaneously accurate and insufficient. "Yes, I think that would be appropriate." Nicholas nodded, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. "Good night, Olivia." After he left, Olivia remained at her desk, contemplating the subtle shift that had just occurred. Neither of them was the person who had stood at that wedding altar years ago. Those versions of themselves had been destroyed and reconstructed through adversity and growth. What remained were two people who had learned to value something beyond power and control: purpose. The night of the Founders' Gala arrived, transforming the Metropolitan Museum of Art into a celebration of resilience and renewal. The Olivia Matthews Foundation for Domestic Violence Survivors had grown into one of the country's largest support organizations, helping thousands of women rebuild their lives after abuse. Olivia stood in her apartment, studying her reflection in the full-length mirror. The emerald gown was elegant without being ostentatious, projecting the quiet confidence that had become her trademark. She had chosen it carefully, a deliberate departure from the bridal designer who had created her wedding dress years earlier. Her phone chimed with a text from Nicholas. "Car service arriving in 10 minutes. See you downstairs." The simplicity of the message belied the complexity of the evening ahead. They would be seen together, photographed together, their complicated history silently accompanying them through the gala's glittering crowds. When the elevator doors opened in her building's lobby, she found Nicholas waiting, handsome in a classic tuxedo, his expression warming visibly at the sight of her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you." She accepted the compliment without deflection, another small evolution in their dynamic. "Shall we?" In the car, they reviewed the evening's schedule with professional focus, her speech timing, key donors to acknowledge, media talking points about the foundation's achievements. The familiar routine of preparation created a buffer against the personal undercurrents of the night. Upon arrival, they were immediately engulfed in the controlled chaos of a high-profile charity event. Photographers called Olivia's name, flashbulbs capturing her emergence from the car, with Nicholas a step behind, present, but deliberately not possessive. Inside, they moved through the crowd with practiced ease, greeting board members, donors, and survivors whose lives had been transformed by the foundation's work. If people were surprised to see them together, most were too polite to comment directly, though Olivia noted speculative glances and whispered conversations in their wake. Rebecca intercepted them near the main hall, resplendent in a midnight blue gown, her professional demeanor temporarily relaxed for the celebratory evening. "Everything's set for your speech," she informed Olivia, "and CNN wants a brief statement about the Foundation's 5-year impact statistics." Her eyes flicked to Nicholas, her expression cooling slightly despite their improved working relationship. "Nicholas, the Princeton dean was looking for you. Something about a guest lecture series." "I'll find him after dinner," Nicholas replied smoothly. "Unless you need me elsewhere, Olivia." "No, stay and enjoy yourself," Olivia assured him. "I should circulate before the program begins." As Nicholas moved away to greet a major donor, Rebecca raised an eyebrow at Olivia. "So, colleagues, huh?" "Don't start," Olivia warned lightly. "I'm not starting anything, just observing that your colleague hasn't taken his eyes off you all evening." Rebecca's tone softened. "Look, I'm the last person to advocate for Nicholas Caldwell, but even I have to admit he's different now." Olivia sighed. "We all are." "True," Rebecca conceded. "Just be careful, Liv. History doesn't disappear, even when people change." Before Olivia could respond, they were interrupted by the arrival of her father and sister's family. Richard Matthews, distinguished in his tuxedo despite his 70 years, embraced his daughter warmly. "My brilliant girl," he said proudly. "Your mother would be bursting with pride tonight." Megan, elegant in a simple black dress, hugged Olivia next, while Sean nodded in greeting, holding a now alert Sophia in a tiny formal dress that matched her mother's. "The museum staff said we can only keep her until 8, Megan explained. "Then the babysitter's taking her home." "I'm just glad you could all make it," Olivia said, genuinely touched by her family's presence. Richard's expression changed as he looked past Olivia's shoulder. "I see Nicholas is here." The observation carried no judgment, merely careful attention. Richard had gradually shifted from outright hostility toward Nicholas to a guarded neutrality as he witnessed the positive impact of the Jang Foundation and his daughter's evident fulfillment in her work there. "We're attending as colleagues," Olivia explained, using the same insufficient term that didn't quite capture the reality of their relationship. Her father studied her face with the perceptiveness that had made him a beloved literature professor for 40 years. "Colleagues. I see." The program began shortly thereafter, with Olivia taking the stage to enthusiastic applause. Her keynote address wove together statistics and personal stories, highlighting both the Foundation's concrete achievements and the emotional heart of its mission. "Strength isn't about never falling," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hushed hall. "It's about how we rise, what we build from the broken pieces." Her eyes briefly met Nicholas's in the audience, and sometimes the most meaningful transformations come from our deepest wounds. After the formal program concluded, the evening transitioned to dancing and continued fundraising. Nicholas found Olivia near the terrace doors, offering her a glass of champagne. "Powerful speech," he said, "especially the part about transformation. Thank you." She accepted the glass, their fingers brushing momentarily. "I meant every word." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the elegant crowd swirl through the museum's vast hall. After a moment, Nicholas spoke again, his voice pitched for her ears alone. "I never properly thanked you." Olivia turned to him, puzzled. "For what?" "For proving me wrong." His expression was unguarded, perhaps for the first time since she had known him. "About you, about what's possible, about what matters." The simple acknowledgement, delivered without qualification or expectation, touched something deep within Olivia. Before she could respond, the orchestra began playing a waltz, and Nicholas set down his untouched champagne. "Would you dance with me?" he asked, offering his hand. "As colleagues, of course." The moment balanced on a knife's edge of possibility. To accept would be to cross an invisible boundary they had maintained since reuniting professionally, to acknowledge physically what they had been circling emotionally for months. "One dance," Olivia agreed, placing her hand in his. He led her to the dance floor with careful courtesy, maintaining a respectful distance as they began to move with the music. They had danced together countless times during their engagement, at charity galas, corporate events, private parties, but never like this, never as equals. "People are watching," Olivia noted, aware of curious eyes tracking their movement. "Let them," Nicholas replied simply. "We have nothing to hide." As they continued to dance, the careful space between them gradually diminished, not through any deliberate movement, but through the natural rhythm of their steps, the subtle gravitational pull of shared history and new understanding. "Stanford sent the contract for the visiting professorship," Nicholas said as they turned. "I signed the compromise, 1 semester per year starting this fall." "I'm glad," Olivia replied honestly. "You have insights worth sharing." Nicholas's hand tightened slightly on hers. "There's something else I've been meaning to tell you. I'm dissolving quantum finance completely, transferring all assets and technology to the Foundation." Olivia missed a step, genuinely surprised. "Why?" "Because maintaining a separate corporate identity no longer makes sense. Because the Foundation's mission is more important than my pride of ownership." He met her gaze directly. "Because it's the right thing to do." The orchestra brought the waltz to its conclusion, and they slowed to a stop, still connected by their clasped hands. Around them the gala continued, conversations flowing, champagne flutes clinking, camera flashes capturing moments of celebration. But in that small circle of space, time seemed suspended. "Nicholas," Olivia began, uncertain what she wanted to say but feeling the importance of this moment. He shook his head slightly. "You don't need to respond. I'm not expecting anything. I just wanted you to know that I've made my choice, for reasons that have nothing to do with obligation or Jang's conditions. I believe in what we've built." The honesty in his voice, so different from the calculated charm he had once wielded, resonated with Olivia's own journey. They had both been broken open by circumstance and remade by choice. "Would you like to get some air?" she asked, nodding toward the terrace doors. "It's getting warm in here." Outside, the April night wrapped around them. Cool, but not cold, the city lights competing with a nearly full moon. They stood at the stone balustrade overlooking Central Park, a comfortable silence between them. "I never thanked you either," Olivia said finally. Nicholas looked surprised. "For what?" "For showing me who I really am." She turned to face him fully. "That day at the cathedral, it was terrible, humiliating, painful, but it was also the moment I stopped living in your shadow and started becoming myself." Nicholas absorbed this, his expression sobering. "I'm still sorry it happened that way." "I'm not," Olivia said with simple honesty. "Not anymore. I wouldn't be who I am today otherwise." A gentle breeze stirred her hair, and Nicholas resisted the impulse to reach out and brush it from her face, a gesture too intimate for what they were to each other now. "What are we doing, Olivia?" he asked quietly. "Beyond colleagues, beyond the foundation, what is this?" The directness of the question demanded equal honesty in response. Olivia considered her words carefully. "I don't know exactly," she admitted. "I know that I respect the person you've become. I value our work together. She hesitated, then continued. "I find myself looking forward to seeing you each day, but I also remember everything that happened between us. I can't forget it, even if I've moved beyond it." Nicholas nodded, accepting this complex truth. "I don't expect you to forget. I wouldn't want you to. It's part of who we both are now." From inside, the sounds of the gala continued. Laughter, music, the celebration of survival and renewal that defined Olivia's foundation. It struck her as fitting that they stood at this threshold, neither fully inside nor completely outside, balanced between past and future. "What if," Nicholas said carefully, "we simply agreed to continue forward? No defined relationship, no expectations beyond honesty and respect, just possibility." Olivia considered this proposal, so different from the controlling, prescriptive relationship they had once shared. "Possibility," she repeated, testing the word. "I think I could agree to that." Something lightened in Nicholas's expression, not triumph or satisfaction, but a quieter emotion closer to peace. "Then I'm honored to continue our collaboration, Ms. Matthews, in whatever form it takes." The formality made her smile. "Likewise, Mr. Caldwell." As they turned to rejoin the gala, Olivia caught sight of her family watching from just inside the doors, her father's thoughtful gaze, Megan's knowing smile, even baby Sophia's curious eyes taking in the scene. They represented everything she had built beyond her professional success, the loving connections that sustained her through rebuilding her life. Whatever lay ahead with Nicholas, professional partnership, cautious friendship, or something yet undefined, would be approached on her terms with clear eyes and the strength she had discovered within herself. The broken pieces of her past had been transformed into something unexpected, but undeniably beautiful, not despite the shattering, but because of it. Inside, the orchestra began another piece, and guests returned to the dance floor. Nicholas offered his arm with a questioning glance. Olivia accepted it, not as the compliant fiancée she had once been, but as a woman who knew her own power and chose her own path. "One more dance," she suggested. "As many as you want," Nicholas replied. "We have time." And together they stepped back into the light, no longer defined by what they had lost, but by what they had found, both within themselves and, unexpectedly, in each other. If this story touched your heart, and you want to keep following inspiring and moving stories, be sure to check out our upcoming videos, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications to stay updated on new content that can brighten your journey and provide valuable insights. Join us and keep exploring stories that truly matter. I'm sure the next video that pops up on your screen will touch you as well. So click on it now, and we'll see you there.